Hey everybody, it's Brian. Before I did this Seahawks stuff full time, I worked as a manager and senior leader. So I know how lonely it can be to try to find someone you trust to talk through people issues, org issues, process issues as you try to lead an organization. Ryan Cleveland of RyanCleveland.com is someone I trust to have those conversations with. He specializes in working with CEOs and business owners, and you can get a complimentary free discovery session to see if it's a good fit for you. Just go to RyanCleveland.com to sign up and start now. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Real Hawk Talk. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, everywhere else, Ad Hoc Blogger, and we're back. It's been a little while since we've been able to do a Real Hawk Talk show for various reasons. Some of us have been sick, some of us have been traveling, all sorts of things going on, but we got the crew back tonight. Evan Hill, at Evan Hill HB. It's been a while, my friend. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well now. I was not well a week ago. I think it feels like everybody knows somebody who is really sick right now or has experienced the flu or the COVID or whatever over the past month. But I was down for the count last week, boys. Like I was not doing well. So I feel a lot better now. Still got a lingering cough, but just been sort of processing the Seahawks news over the past couple of weeks and watching your shows, Brian, as I always meticulously consume your content. So that's what I do.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. I mean, the bonus for people here is they got to watch me go through that sickness, which I'm sure was just wonderful to experience. But you actually came off the DL today, got good and got well enough to attend, and Nathan went down. So like Nathan was originally on the roster, and we gain one, we lose one, but we still got Jeff Simmons, at Real Jeff Simmons. He has not yet reached the phase of fatherhood where he gets sick every other day from something that his child brings into the house. So how are you doing, my friend? You get any sleep?
A bit. I'm starting to get a little more, but the weather's been so crap in Toronto. My son's barely left the house other than to go to like doctor's appointments, and like he hasn't really gone for walks outside yet. It's been one of these weird indoor kids right now. So no, I'm not at that phase yet where all my friends have been getting sick all the time. And I'm like, it's been pretty easy for me, but everyone I know, like you guys said, is sick right now. So I barely left the house in the last month. So it's been wild.
Jeff, you mentioned how cold it's been in Toronto. How cold was it today?
Today was like one of the warmer days, and it was like probably like 30.
Okay, because I got to tell you this. You guys don't know this. So I'm visiting some friends in Montana very shortly, okay? And I've never been to Montana. Have you either of you been to Montana?
I've been to Montana.
Okay. I checked the freaking forecast, okay?
Oh, no.
5 degrees. 5. And I'm like I don't have the facilities. I don't have the clothing capabilities for this.
It's going to be an expensive trip for you.
I have no idea what I'm going to do. So I have to figure this out in short order. But I thought of you, Jeff, when I saw that podcast.
This is another reason you need Jeff to move closer so you can just raid his closet when you go on these rare trips to the cold. Yeah. That's going to be fun. I assume you're going to spend time inside. Or are you going you're going to go skiing? Or are you going to go anything outside?
So I'm not a snow sport person, but there's this famous, I want to say it's like a hot springs or something near Bozeman or something. I think that's like partially outside, but that should be the only time I'm outside. So my body's too fragile for the snow sports. too fragile.
I love that. So wait, are you going to be there for the Super Bowl? Or are you going to go in after the Super Bowl?
It's after the Super Bowl. Yeah.
What I gotta take your temperature. Like, where are you guys at on the Super Bowl? Like, scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like can't wait for it, 1 being like not even going to watch it. Where are you guys on that scale?
I forgot about it until like yesterday. So, I mean, I'm definitely going to watch it, but my interest level is pretty much at an all-time low.
Yeah.
Jeff,
Are you watching? You like doing a party at your place? You going somewhere? Do you know yet?
I got some friends hitting me up and asking me the same thing. I might just do nothing, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'm not that interested. I'm not that intrigued. Jeff, are you in a different boat? Like,
No, it's weird for me because, you guys know me. I'm a sicko. Like, I'm usually like scouring for bets and like coming up with like nonstop content, and like I haven't been following anything. I'm like at a 2 or a 3, and like my only excitement is that I actually get to like hang out with some of my buddies and like actually leave the house. But I'm more excited to like pregame to eat once the game starts. I'm I'm close to like a 1. Like, I don't really care for either of these teams. I'm not excited about either of these teams. I know, like Nathan was saying, like we should all appreciate greatness and things like that. I just can't get excited about Mahomes or Andy Reid or Jalen Hurts. Maybe I'll change my mind watching it, but I haven't felt this like disconnected, because even like when the Niners were in, the hate watching component is almost more fun than anything else.
Yeah, that's the thing is I honestly don't have a dog in the fight. Maybe I'm slightly pulling for the Chiefs, slightly, just because Chiefs in general annoy me less than Eagles fans, especially. But like, I don't have a huge. I definitely like Andy Reid better than I like Nick Sirianni, that kind of thing. But I don't know. I mean, the thing that I do like about it is it should be a good game. Like from a football standpoint, it should be a good matchup. I'm curious to see, like, does a good offensive line with a mediocre quarterback and a great running back and a very good defense, is that enough to slow down a, legendary quarterback and coach and that whole combination? It should be interesting. Like, I'll watch, but it's nice to not have like this stress of, oh my God, are the 49ers going to finally break the streak? But in general, not super enthusiastic about it. So I'm glad you guys aren't either, so we won't have to spend a lot of time on that. I've got a different question for you related to the Super Bowl. All right. We're going to try to solve the hardest problem for the Seahawks, and we're going to try to do it during this show. Okay? So buckle up.
I thought this was going to be a snack related question.
This is not going to be a snack related question. We may end up there. But would you agree that the biggest thing that the Seahawks could do to be playing again this weekend, as opposed to watching from the sidelines, is to find their next franchise quarterback? Do you think that's the biggest thing the Seahawks could do to be playing in this game? So that's first question.
I mean, it's one of the top biggest things, like that.
What's in competition? What's in competition for it?
Develop an actual offensive line. Like if they have a top 10 unit in the trenches, there's a good shot they win a couple of playoff games, frankly.
Jeff?
I think it is the number one thing, but I think building up the interior offensive line is got to be right there. Like, these are two of the best interior offensive lines in the league. And like you said, with the Eagles, ultimately, I think they got to be great at something, whether it's defense, offensive line. But I think they have to build maybe even before quarterback, they have to build an infrastructure for their offense to be repeatable. And I think that's the biggest thing they need to do right now.
I mean, this is two of the best defenses in the NFL as well, right?
It is.
It's another trend.
Well, part of the reason I'm curious, this is the fun part of this. So, offensive line we've talked about a lot. We have not talked about the quarterback thing as much. We talked about, should you sign Geno? Should you not? What would the extension be like? All that kind of stuff. I don't want to talk about that. We've done that. And the fact of the matter is, no matter how you feel about Geno Smith, he's 35 or going to be 35. You got it. Like, the likelihood that the team is going to all come together in the next 2 years Geno Smith is probably still capable of playing his best football. I don't know if I'd bet on that. So the question I've got for you guys, and I'm going to give you some choices and you can choose off menu if you want. How do you find, what's your move you make this offseason that puts you in the best chance to potentially find your next franchise quarterback? That is the question we are going to wrestle with for a little bit. And I'm going to give you some choices. You can go and draft. You can pick somebody in the first round, second round, third round, fourth round, whatever you want to do. You could draft. You could sign somebody in free agency. You could go big after Sam Darnold. You could go after somebody else, right? Door number 2. Door number 3, you could decide you're going to really give Sam Howell a shot. Go with who you got on the roster. Invest and develop with what you have in-house. And door number 4, you could trade for somebody. And trade options I'll throw out there include, maybe you go after Hendon Hooker. Maybe you go after Joe Milton. Maybe you go after whoever else comes to mind for you. And I'd put in the free agency, the door number 2, I'd throw in there a Kirk Cousins if you want to assume he's available. All right. So put him in the free agent bucket. Not saying that's what you pick, but I want to know, and I want to hear from you guys, knowing that we've got to find somebody after Geno, which of those 4 options this year puts you in the best position to potentially find that guy?
Jeff, you're going on the board first on this one. I'm throwing you to the wolves.
This is pretty rough because this is the hardest offseason to do this. This is
wait, does it have to be accomplished this offseason?
This offseason. You're taking a step toward whatever the answer is. And I'll give you a little bit more. It could be if you want a multi-step process, like we're going to sign somebody in free agency and then we're going to whatever. But it's like we're taking a step this offseason to move closer to what that answer is. It could be direct, it could be a second multi-step, whatever.
I just don't like the premise of the question though, because I don't think you're acquiring him this season or this offseason.
You don't get to decide whether you like the premise.
This is not the quarterback draft. Am I wrong? You guys are the draft guys.
That's the sad part, because I think that's probably the best answer. I think it's a lottery ticket in the draft. I don't think it's in the first round. I do not think it's in the first round. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say go out and try to hope you get Brock Purdy or something, but you look at free agency, like Sam Darnold essentially just creates what you have now and probably a more expensive version of it. He's 10 years younger, but I don't think it ultimately takes you to the Super Bowl. We saw what happened with him at the end of the year. The rest of free agency is just trash. I know, Brian, I think I know where you're going to go with this. I think probably the best is to take multiple shots. So that's a second, third round, fourth round pick, maybe like a Will Howard kind of guy, maybe something like that. And then you trade for Joe Milton and hope one of them hits. I think you diversify. That's kind of what they did with Russ and Flynn. But yeah, Evan's reaction is pretty telling. I think that's more likely getting you the next Sam Howell than the next franchise quarterback, because they've tried to go they haven't drafted anyone, but they did Drew Lock and they did Sam Howell, and those were the next best options. And they've become Drew Lock and Sam Howell, and they're not even good backup quarterbacks. So I think I would take a mid-round, third round, fourth round quarterback and hope you strike gold.
Could you entice a non-Cowboys related Texas football team to trade one of their best players?
A non-Cowboy, CJ Stroud?
It's a Luka joke.
Oh.
Who's the worst GM in the league? Can you trade for that guy?
Yeah, we don't have. What was his name? That Bill O'Brien down there that was trading away all their good players. Yeah, we don't have him. We don't have him anymore. Evan, no, I'm gonna make you answer, man. So what do you do? You know how important this position is. You do nothing. That's an option.
I lean towards Jeff's realistic approach of like you throw a dart in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. I don't think you throw a high pick at this, but if we're talking, if you allow me to expand the horizons of the question, Brian, you know what you do? You start Sam Howell, and you lose a lot of football games this year. A lot of football games. And the fan base is going to be deeply unhappy, but it could set you up pretty well draft pick position-wise in 2026. And everybody's going to hate me for saying that because tanking is bad, but sometimes it works. And this could be one of those situations. So
could be, or like, is that what you like? I want a little more conviction. Is that what you would, if you were in charge of this and your goal, like what you were, like your entire compensation depended on you finding the next Seahawks franchise quarterback? Is that what you would do?
Well, I was the author of the Get Plowed for Stroud campaign.
You were?
I would, if I knew I had job security, right, going beyond this past year, I got no problem losing quite a few games to get a franchise savior in the following year, potentially. But I think you should throw a dart this year, regardless, in the mid rounds.
Okay. So what I'm hearing from you, I want to play it back, is you would start Sam Howell.
If your goal in isolation, top goal is to find your next franchise quarterback, I think that is the most realistic, shortest path to getting there. Because the reality is, guys, it's like Geno, as much as we hate him, like his floor keeps us relatively high.
Wait. Don't say we hate him. I'm not in that bucket at all. Okay. I'm not even close to that bucket. Okay. So don't put me in that bucket with you.
He keeps us in this mediocre purgatory window where it's going to be hard to find that next guy. It just is. Like the chances are low. So is what it is.
So you would sit or cut Geno, and then you would play Sam Howell, and then you would draft a quarterback this year in the mid rounds. And then you would draft, if none of those players worked out, you would draft another quarterback early next year. Is that what I heard from you?
Yeah. I mean, if that's the goal in isolation, yes.
Let me.
You hear how squirrely he is, Jeff? Like this is like a C-level Seahawks podcast, and he like on a night that probably nobody's watching. Nobody cares what Evan thinks, and he can't even commit. He can't even commit.
It's a hard one, man.
The Homish Seahawks fans are stoked that I'm taking this approach with Geno. Like they, I just don't think like, Brian, what do you want me to say? Like,
I just, this is, you're just dancing. You're dancing like this is like you're on a very hot seat, and I find this to be a no pressure conversation, but I enjoy that you're feeling the pressure.
I don't like the time boxed window of like, I don't think this is the year to do it. Like, I don't think you're going to find that guy this year. I really do.
Jeff, what you were going to say?
Well, I was going to say, this is the offense that was successful with Jimmy Garoppolo, Matt Schaub, Brock Purdy. I don't know how far we can take this thing back. Derek Carr to an extent. If Kubiak is good, and we don't know if he is, someone like Will Howardish could be fine in this offense. So that's where I think like the Jackson Dart idea or the Milrow, I think that's like, I can't get really behind that. Evan's right. Like this is a horrible offseason for quarterbacks. The supply and demand, like surprised no one said like, go get Russ and just have some fun or something. But hopefully you can find that kind of, you don't need like the super big arm guy to run this offense if you're going to have this system for a while. Now, is that a way to get a franchise quarterback? Is that what John looks for? No. So that's where it kind of, it's a hard question. Brian, I wonder I think I know where you're going to go with this thing, but
I cannot hear Brian. Brian, are you going to go down the Joe Milton route? Are you going to do it?
That was my guess.
Because I can't handle it if you're going to do it. I can't handle it.
Yeah? What's going to happen?
I need you to stop pretending like he's good.
No?
I need this fan base to stop like.
Did you watch that game?
Yes, I did.
Did you?
Did you?
Yes. When Drake May got injured or pulled or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like, it wasn't a full game though. It was like,
It was all but 2 snaps.
oh, was it that much?
It was the week. Yeah, they were trying to lose the game actually to get the number 1 pick, and Joe Milton was so good they won, and they end up with the 4th pick.
Okay, this is coming from the guy who just said play Sam Howell to tank in the hopes that we are going to find somebody next year. Does not get to look down upon any other path to finding this. All right, Sam Howell is not exactly the top of the list of guys I would look to try to solve things for you.
What do you want me to say? Like Matt Flynn once threw 5 touchdowns in a single game. Like he's a stud. Like
all I wanted was conviction from you. I think I've got enough. I don't care what your plan was, but I wanted to know what it was. And I think I've got some clarity from both you. For me, guys, I look at the quarterbacks in this draft. If we had the number 3 pick, number 2 pick, I tell you both right now, we're kind of screwed because we would probably be drafting Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. I don't think they're that good either.
I think that's consensus.
I think if you spent a first round pick on a quarterback, you are married. You're putting a ring on that. And you are going to say you're going to spend 3-4 years trying to get that quarterback to work out. If you draft someone in the top 5, you got a prenup. Like you are really locked in with that guy. And I don't think either of these guys are worth that. So I'm glad in that sense that we are not in a situation to draft one of those top 2 quarterbacks. I'm not a huge believer in Jackson Dart. I'm not a huge believer. I'm definitely not a big believer in Will Howard, Riley Leonard, Tyler Shuck, like Jalen Milroe, like on down the line. Not a big believer in it. None of these guys like raise my heartbeat much. If Joe Milton was in this draft, I would take him with the 18th pick. Sit on that one for a little while, Evan.
It's like, did they really need to draft Nehemiah Pritchett last year?
Well, DJ James, yes. But I mean, this is the risk you run when you don't use those late picks on a flyer at quarterback. Because even if let's say play it back, if the Seahawks had drafted Joe Milton and he'd showed some promise, even if they were like, actually, this guy's not very good, they could be probably peddling him into a 3rd round pick right now or more.
Yeah. Instead, they used the capital on Sam Howell
and DJ James.
Yeah.
You know, Evan, why are you so upset? What has made you so sad about Joe Milton?
Were the Bills even starting Josh Allen in that game? Like
No.
who were the Patriots playing? Like were the Bills playing their starters that game?
No, the Bills were actually trying to lose to screw the Patriots.
Did you see how the Seahawks did against the Rams backups?
Oh, so Joe Milton was playing a bunch of 4-stringers?
Did you see how how did Drake May do against? What's that?
How many touchdowns would I have thrown against that Bills defense? 1,
0.
2?
Maybe 2.
Maybe 2? What was your question, Brian?
How did the Seahawks offense do against the Rams backups in that final game? It's the same question.
Gino threw for 4 touchdowns.
He's the starter. He's going against a lot of backups.
JSN had a terrible game. He lost me money that day.
I know. Look, I'm not sitting here telling you that Joe Milton's the next great quarterback, but of all the choices I see in front of the Seahawks, I think he's the best bet. If you told me, if I had some view of Hendon Hooker where I like saw something there, like I would be more interested in Hendon Hooker than any of the rookie quarterbacks that you're going to draft in this class.
Okay, hold up. Okay, so let's say Joe Milton's available this offseason for trade. What are you offering as your BAFO, your best and final to the Patriots?
I wouldn't go higher than a 3rd.
Okay.
Essentially the same thing as what I'm suggesting. So it's
okay. I was really concerned you were going to say something much higher. I was really concerned.
No, I don't think I'd go higher than that.
Yes.
But here's the thing. You're talking about taking a flyer on a mid-round quarterback, guys. Both of you said that.
Yeah.
Make the case for me about why your mid-round pick should be on one of the quarterbacks in this draft instead of the guy that was in last year's draft. That's already shown in the NFL. I don't care who he played against. He made plays in that game, athletic plays, throws that none of these guys have shown that they can do. So tell me who else is worth that 4th round pick you're talking about spending, or the 3rd round pick that you're talking about spending at quarterback.
No, I'm fine with this logic. I'm not going to fight this one. Like, if you want to throw a 4th or a 5th at Joe Milton at the Patriots for Joe Milton, sure. Like, I'm not opposed to that. I don't think he's the guy, but sure, if you want to throw a dart there, that's fine.
Yeah, it's more or less the same thing.
I'm not going to fight you.
It's more or less the same thing as what I'm saying. Like, I think Will Howard in this offense could work. I don't know if it's going to take you to a Super Bowl, but I think we've seen when you have like the kind of game he had. But is Will Howard the next Brock Purdy? And even if he is, how good is that? I don't know. So if you're just saying we're throwing a 3rd, 4th rounder at another quarterback, it's essentially the same thing, whether it's last year's guy or this year's guy. I think really that's kind of the only route they have right now, unless they do the Evan thing or they trade all these picks for. I can't see McDonald and Schneider being like, we're going to load up picks for next year. Like, as much as I think Evan's plan does make sense in a theory, I can't see these guys doing it.
Well, here's where I think that just falls down. Like, Mike McDonald's never going to intentionally not put his best team out there. It's not going to happen. And they're trying to build buy-in in that locker room. They're not going to intentionally go backwards. Like,
no, they lose the room.
They lose the room. I think ownership cares. Like, that's just not the way it's going to work. So they're gonna keep trying to win. And guys, they should probably win more games next year. The defense should be better. The offensive line can't be worse. We keep saying that, but it can't be worse.
Assuming they don't botch this offseason.
Say more.
Well, I heard Brady Anderson on your show, and I don't know how much Brady knows, but hearing about his situation of, well, they're going to go back to the draft and maybe trade up more instead of kind of using free agency. And if they just kind of run the thing back and it's the same offensive line problem and the quarterback isn't as good, I think the offense will certainly be better. But if they just have the same offensive line strategy, they're hoping they get lucky in the draft. Maybe they take a guy in the 2nd round instead of the 3rd round. It's possible they're the same or they lose a game. So I think they need to really have a good plan to get better, especially up front.
Well, I guess I kind of look at it and I'm like, show me the guys that have shown franchise quarterback traits. Like, of the guys, Riley Leonard hasn't shown it. Jalen Monroe's shown franchise quarterback legs, but we've talked a lot about what else he just has not shown in that regard. Tyler Shuck certainly hasn't. He's got some nice passes, some good highlights, but I'm not sure I've seen it. I don't think Will Howard's definitely, like, he seems like he has a pretty fixed ceiling in that regard. And so, like, Cam Ward, I think, has a pretty high ceiling. I think he's got a long road to get there, but it's a pretty high ceiling. You're not going to get Cam Ward, so it's not even worth talking about. And guys, like, you seem uncomfortable with this conversation, which is good. It's an uncomfortable situation for the Seahawks, right? But I don't think you can keep kicking the can down the road and not be making a move towards looking at your franchise quarterback. And I think that we're headed towards a path where they're going to use one of these mid-round picks on one of these rookies. And I'm telling you right now, I would rather spend a higher pick up to like a 3rd to get someone like Milton than I would be to draft any of these quarterbacks. And I haven't heard or seen anything that really changes my perspective there. It doesn't mean I'm right, but, like, give me the 6'5", 250-pound guy that runs through people and has a rocket arm. Like, yeah, I'll take a shot on that. Who is locked behind a top 5 pick at quarterback. He's never going to be their starter. And from what we've heard, maybe available. The Patriots may be making him available.
I have a hard time seeing our general manager, John Schneider, Sam Howell's #1 fan, jeopardizing his confidence with a trade like that. I think John is totally comfortable rolling out Sam Howell next year if it comes to that. I mean, do you guys disagree?
Jeff?
I have no idea because everyone who was around Howell last year said he was god awful, and then he goes into that game and he looked so bad and so shook. And like if I was running the team, I'd probably rip the Band-Aid. I'd consider cutting him. I would just consider walking away. But I don't know how John feels about it. I know there's a lot of messaging to like national reporters that Ryan Grubb wasn't good, and they think that Kubiak can fix a lot of their issues, but I don't know if that relates to Howell or the run game or Gino. I don't know where it's standing on that. Brian, you were around the team. You might have
All
better
right.
idea.
Watch this. Evan, watch this. All right.
Propaganda alert. Propaganda alert.
Tell me what you see here.
Is this a high? Oh, my God.
Tell me what you see. Do you have anyone doing that coming out? Any backflips coming out? Do you have, watch these next two throws. Tell me that you've seen, look at this throw. I don't care who you're playing against. Tell me who you've seen make that throw. Now watch this next throw. All right. Tell me who you've seen in this draft. Tell me who you've seen in free agency. Who's 250 pounds. Look, watch this. Watch this. Who does this remind you of? Look at him escape. Look how mobile. Look at him retreat, spin. And watch this. That's a touchdown right there. You tell me why. Look at that. The guy hits him. Watch that again. Watch that again. That might be his best highlight of the whole thing. Watch this again. The guy hits him full on. And he throws him to the ground and he looks at him. Tell me that this guy does not give you franchise quarterback vibes. I don't care who it was against. That was NFL players he was going against. What?
Who radicalized you?
He did.
Who?
He did.
In the how many steps he took? How many?
The 30, 50 steps. It wasn't just me that was radicalized. His game, that game was better than almost any rookie quarterback's game all year long. Now, that's against different competition. But Drake May, in that same offense, that man struggled to do a lot of almost anything.
Sure.
He was not making those throws.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sold on Drake May. Jeff, why do you feel like, do you agree with him on this?
I would take, I think it's the same idea as what I'm saying. I would take the shot. I just know, I remember an old quote from a baseball general manager that was the GM of the Mariners and the GM of the Blue Jays. And one of his lines was always, never believe anything you see in September. And week 18 is the equivalent of September. So you might see some amazing things like that. Matt Flynn is a great example. And I can't get that out of my head. I can't get that quote out of my head. But the physical tools are unbelievable. Like, if you're looking Will Howard and you watch that guy, you're like, okay, that's a Jimmy Garoppolo, Schaub type of player. I don't think that's going to fire anyone up in this modern era where you see what Josh Allen, Lamar, and what those guys do. So if you're betting on tools, Milton is like Cam Newton with a rocket arm. Like, the skill set is wild. I would need to know more about the kid, more about his attitude, his leadership, things like that. But if you're like, well, we can trade a third or just keep another Sam Howell year, I'd send Sam Howell to the CFL and take a shot on that team. But Sam Howell's got 1 year left on his deal and part of the worst draft class at quarterback, maybe worse than this one. And just all these guys are like, we're talking about in the draft, like the Jackson Dart has like Desmond Ritter vibes to me. Like, I feel major Desmond Ritter stuff where they're just I remember arguing with so many people when they're like, Desmond Ritter could go to the Seahawks at 9. I'm like, what are you talking about? Then he went to the 3rd round and he stunk. And he's basically a 3rd string quarterback after 1 year. So I could go, or I can get where Brian's going with this thing. Just if you're rolling the dice, why not take the the lottery ticket with the most fun tools. I don't know if it's real, but I get where you're coming from.
Those are two totally different things. I think the reason I'm making the case I'm making is not because I think Joe Milton is certain to be a franchise quarterback, or that you could base everything off that one game and he's proven that he's that guy. I'm saying he showed more in that one game from a tools perspective than any of the other guys we're talking about. Any of them.
Yeah.
And if you're looking, like, the fact that people are out there saying Jalen Milroe should be a first round pick or a high second round pick, because why? Because of tools that they think that they can work with. He's shown a good deep ball and he's shown great legs. Joe Milton, in those clips I just showed you, showed more than Jalen Milroe's shown in all his time in college. Period. Like, he did things that Joe Milton has not done. And so I do say, yeah, I'd rather bet on those tools and see what can come of them than anything else I'm seeing. Because look, I do think you got to start lobbing some grenades, guys. Like, backing it all the way back up. We've kind of taken this as far as we need to take it, but I'm so sick of the team being like in this purgatory, right?
Yep, they are.
I mean, look at both you guys are wearing brown. Like, that's like the level of purgatory we're in. Like, you guys have decided this team is shitty and you're showing it through your clothes. So, like, I want to take some bigger swings. They're not going to do it by signing Trey Smith as much as I'd like them to. So putting up here that Hawkblogger could show Malik Willis highlights and tell me he's QB1. I don't hate Malik Willis. Malik Willis has won a couple games.
Oh, that was supposed to be a joke.
I don't hate Malik Willis.
Oh,
No,
I would not make this case for Malik Willis. I would not make this case for Malik Willis. I would make the case for Malik Willis over some other guys. But this is where we are.
Yep.
Oh my God.
But the problem that I still come back to is I don't think they have an infrastructure for a quarterback yet.
They don't.
And that's almost where I would start. And I know I agree with you. They got to take shots. I've hated that they've kind of pushed this can down the road. And like, it must drive John Schneider crazy because Mahomes, when they traded up for him, the Chiefs, I think they were like a spot away from the Seahawks. All they gave up was like a 1 and a 3. And like, if they gave up the 1 and the 3, that would have eliminated like Lano Hill and Rashad Penny. Like, that's all it would have cost you. So they've been sitting there with the shot, and like, they could have traded up a couple times and they haven't. And now we're in this kind of purgatory. But like, we also we haven't shown we've had a run game for how long? We haven't showed we've had an offensive line for how long? Like, I would love for them to just kind of spend an offseason just trying to build an infrastructure for a guy and then making an aggressive move for one. But I'm with you, Brian. Like, they can't just keep getting the Locks and Howells of the world and hoping he turns into Brett Favre. Like,
but
those guys stink.
We got to be honest about how John has approached the QB position, right?
Yeah.
What has he literally done? Not rumored to do, but literally done.
Whitehurst,
He's traded like multiple early picks for Charlie Whitehurst. He has signed Matt Flynn. He has drafted Russell in the 3rd round. He has traded the equivalent of a 5th round pick for Sam Howell. What am I missing? I mean, 6th round on Alex Magoo. Right? Drew Lock as a throw-in.
He prioritized him.
Sure, but he was not the primary part of that trade.
No,
he's a throw-in in that trade by any way you figure. So John is not. He has not identified a guy. He rumored to be interested in Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, these other guys, but he has not done it.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, you could have made that trade that the Chiefs made easily. They had 4 third-round picks that year.
Right. So then, if you know where his tendencies are, probably going to spend a mid-round pick one way or another on this.
God.
Like, I guess part of my point here is you don't see guys that flash tools like that happen to be young and behind a franchise quarterback who you know he's not going to overtake anytime soon, so he could be available, and he could be available for the type of compensation that your GM has given up in the past. Like, he's a lottery ticket. Maybe it's super long odds, but that's a much more interesting lottery ticket than Sam Howell to me at this point. It's a much more interesting lottery ticket than Riley Leonard, or Kyle McCord, who I like. Like, so that's like, I think that there's this little window where there's this guy that's shown just enough. And guess what? All the people that are saying, what the hell? Like, why would you do this? It's one game. It's a game in September, whatever, like you're talking about. In this case, January, but I know what you meant. That's a baseball thing. That's going to keep his price from being a first round pick.
True.
Right?
True.
If he had already done enough to prove that he is that valuable, you wouldn't even be able to really talk about getting him for this kind of pick. So I feel like there's this little window, and I want something that has a chance to blow up, and he hits the bar for me.
I mean, that's fine. I mean, the reality is like you said, it's a lottery pick, and the answer is not sexy here, guys. Seattle just needs to start throwing money at lottery picks every single year. I don't care how low it is. They need to start throwing darts. They have not done it. They just haven't. So this needs to be an area that John Schneider like religiously addresses every single year, just throws darts at, and hope we get lucky.
And I think that's been a huge failure of his, considering that's been like his mantra. And I know the drafts have gotten away from him, but like Green Bay, they did get Matt Hasselbeck, who they actually turned into a first round pick, and Aaron Brooks and Mark Brunell and all these guys. And he was around that, grew up around Ron Wolf. And Ron Wolf was a trenches guy. And he's come here with that mantra. Not only have they not built the trenches, they haven't drafted quarterbacks. And look, Joe Milton, they had multiple shots at him last year. They took 2 cornerbacks from the same school. And you'd feel a lot better having one of those dudes instead of Sam Howell. And I think it's a kind of a black mark that, the Russ trade was great. The Geno Smith thing feels like it was like they fluked into it. And they've really never had a plan of how you moved on from trading Russ was great. They clearly sold right, but it's kind of irrelevant that they got so much for him. And they haven't really gone better. And I think that's because of that position and not drafting Jalen Carter and things like that. But I think it's a big black mark on kind of where they are right now. They made one of the best trades of all time, and they're still not better. And I think it's because of that.
Yeah, I think that all makes sense. I got a super chat here we got to put up there from Austin Martin. It says, what about sending multiple first rounders to an AFC team for an established star? I bet Joe Burrow wants out of Cincinnati. I doubt JS would do it, though. Thoughts on that? Love you guys. Go Hawks. I don't know. Like Justin Herbert. The only guy that might come close to maybe consideration is Trevor Lawrence. Like maybe the Jags would consider that, but I don't
Probably
think
not,
so.
though.
I think Liam Cohen's probably like, no, I want to coach this guy.
Duval.
So I don't think there's any, if you've got an established quarterback, I don't think anyone's giving him up. I don't care. Even if you gave him 4 first round picks, I don't think most people are really thinking about it. The other thing that Brady said in the show I had with him, I'm curious if you guys like, he was pretty clear that he doesn't think that they're going to spend meaningful money on an offensive lineman. Like they're not going to he's very skeptical. They'd go after, which I think we all kind of instinctually know is probably true.
Yeah.
But if their answer is some Jag vet free agent, and then let's say they spend a first round pick on a guard, where are you guys on that?
Not good enough.
Say more, Jeff.
I've been saying it for years. They have to supplement. They have to do it in conjunction. You look at the Chiefs. They got Thuney. They got Humphrey. They got Smith. You look at the Eagles. They've done drafted really well. They took a lottery ticket last year on Becton, and I think the Seahawks have 3 pretty big holes in their offensive line. I think guard to guard. And now that you're running a scheme, Brian, you're going to be around this guy, I assume, this week. their offense fell off a cliff last year when their center got injured. The quarterback has talked about the importance of the center position and how the veteran and how important it is. Shanahan, who was around Kubiak, same line coach, signed Alex Mack. I think if they don't go into the free agency and sign a center, I think that's a big mistake. I think they have to come out of free agency with a good veteran center, unless they think Olu's the guy who can run all the communications. And I see Olu as like a fringe starter at best. I don't think he's the dude. So I would love for them to spend a first-round pick on offensive lineman. I'll applaud that. I don't think that's enough. I think you need to do it in conjunction. We've been saying this for 2 years now. I think at the very least you need to come out upgrading 2 spots this offseason. I would love for them to do 3, but I think you need to get center and then a high pick on a guard. I think they might need to do a center and a guard and free agent.
Brian, I agree with Jeff. To answer your question, I think it has to be a tag team combination, both in free agency and spending premium draft capital there. What are your guys' thoughts on Drew Dahlman from the Falcons? Have you guys dug into him at all with like his outside zone sort of like rushing background?
I think that's the guy. I think I would be maybe my number 1 target for them. I think if they're going to run the offense that Brian, you dug into John Benton and his background.
That's why I brought it up. I was like, Brian, I was literally listening to your show for the second time before this. And like, I swear to God, I was for the second time.
Okay.
I wanted that being dead ass serious. I wanted to listen to that quote where he called him like a slobber knocker or whatever to get me hyped. And this guy seems like he'd be a perfect fit for this offensive line. I mean, am I wrong here?
I think like if they go out and sign him, like that gives me more confidence and this might work. Yeah. For this whole thing to work, I think you're going to need a good center. And I think if you convince yourself it's Olu and not Drew Dahlman, it's going to be really hard for even if they hit Tyler Booker or Zabel or one of these guys in the first round. Mm-hmm. I think Dahlman is, a hand and glove fit. And a lot of the number guys we've come up with hand and glove fits have turned out pretty good.
Yeah. There's some interesting guard options too. I know Trey Smith is a top of the chart type of guy, but I have a hard time seeing them allocate that type of capital to the guard. But
yeah, how do you guys feel about the fact that Drew Dahlman is a pretty poor pass blocker? He's a really good run blocker.
John Ben can coach that up.
I was going to say that this scheme is designed to kind of alleviate that a little bit.
A little bit.
I think if he can control the line calls and he could kind of get them going with their run game, I think you can live with a little of a weaker pass blocker at center. Mm. I think if you go out, I don't know, like Ryan Kelly's like a 32-year-old starting to break down kind of guy. I don't know if that's a great answer. Maybe it's cheaper, but I think you need to start somewhere because Olu's also a bad pass protector. So
I don't know that he is. He's had some bad moments. I'm not nearly as low on Olu as you are. I'm not high on Olu, but I think I'll say this. I would take a first-round pick and a priority guard free agent over getting Drew Dahlman and like a draft pick.
That's fair.
Guard.
No. Like, as long as you're upgrading 2 spots to me, and one of them is a veteran, I don't think you're going to do all 3. I think if you look at, you can live with Olu, you can live with a LeMay or a Haynes. As long as those other 2 spots are upgraded, I'll be excited about the direction. If it's just they get one in the draft, and you got Olu and Haynes out there next year, I don't know, man.
Yeah, I heard John Boyle on with, I think it was Bump and Stacy this week, talking about his time at Senior Bowl. And John, you got to listen to him because, like, he's never going to tell you something, but he's going to kind of tell you something if he, like what he's willing to say or not say. And he said something along the lines of, I think that the team believes that while the offensive line definitely needs to improve, I don't think they believe that they need to get 3 new starters or something like that. And the way he said it, matter-of-factly, to me, indicates they're not planning on getting 3 new starters. Like, anyone that's holding hope that that's the plan, surrender hope. Like, it's not going to happen. And I would bet you that Olu's a guy that they're willing to upgrade, but I think they'd be willing to roll the dice. If you were to really push me, I would bet that their plan right now is to spend a higher pick, a first round or a second round pick on a guard, and then maybe sign a vet like under $5 million a year. That would be my bet.
I don't think that's good enough.
It's certainly more risky. It's more risky. Like, let's be honest. Like, if they get a guy that's Dominic Pooney in the first or second round this year and they stick him in there, that would be better than spending $23 million on a guard, right?
Yes.
But it's riskier.
How about both?
But why not both? That's
yeah.
Like the Chiefs did the double dip with Humphrey and Tooney. I'm not saying you're going to get these all pros, but they were in this same spot in that Super Bowl. They had to upgrade their whole interior line. They did it in one offseason, luckily, because they got Trey Smith in the 6th round. But what's the harm of double dipping and throwing more bodies? And if Haynes hits, great. But why not get like a Will Fries or a Becton and the Tyler Booker? And then if Haynes hit, then you're loaded.
You talk about building for the future, bringing in a franchise type of guy. This is the moment. This is the time. Allocate premium capital, allocate premium financial resources to this position group so you can adequately control the line of scrimmage. And when a franchise quarterback does show up in Seattle, he's in a much better position with a competent pass protecting unit than the absolute crap show we've had over the past decade. It's guys, like this is
and
how
not
you
just
really,
pass pro, the run blocking.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Like they lost games. They didn't make the playoffs last year because they couldn't win 3rd and 1.
Okay. I forgot about patron questions. We got to do patron questions. So let's do that real quick. If you haven't already signed up at patreon.com/hawkblogger, you can ask us questions each and every week like these folks. Alvy is the first. And this question goes to Jeff Simmons. Just hypothetically, would you sacrifice Geno if you can get Miles, meaning go a different quarterback, risk sucking for a year before you find a replacement, or hope whoever you get to play QB gets 12 points a game because that's what you need? I question this probably wrong, so feel free to set the question in the way that makes more sense for the pod. I think Alvy's saying what
I'm not following.
I think Alvin is putting the hypothetical of what Evan said. Is it worth just, having a year where you go down and you stink and try to draft a good quarterback later?
Like, I don't think you can purposely tank, like Evan's saying. Like, I think McDonald's trying to set a program. I think you're a very veteran heavy, like the locker room leaders are Julian Love and Leo and those guys. And you try to build a program. I think it would be, you saw the email that went out to the ticket holders. I think you could have worded it very differently. I don't think that's going to happen. I would not kill them if they just say, look, we're not going to allocate this much money to a 35-year-old quarterback while we're trying to rebuild this thing. We could have a stopgap for a year while we try to draft a guy. That wouldn't bother me that much as it would other people. Like, there's enough stopgaps you can get in free agency. I wouldn't love it, obviously. It'd be hard to watch, but I wouldn't hate it as much as other people.
Evan, next question for you comes from Jen. It says, are you more optimistic or less optimistic now that the offensive coaching side of the ball has been overhauled?
I think I'm relative to the Grubb staff, I think it's a high floor sort of hire, but I'm not going to pretend like I'm ecstatic about the hire, guys. Like, I'm pretty lukewarm on this. It feels like the safe pick, and I think I'm okay with that. These two guys that he brought in, the quarterback's coach, like, these are guys that he has pre-existing relationships with. Kubiak has worked schematically with these guys, before. So my hope is that there's going to be less sort of like rookie mistakes almost from a coaching perspective with the Kubiak hire. So I think to answer the question, I'm probably lukewarm optimistic. Yeah, but not. Yeah. I'm not out of this world excited for sure.
It's kind of, I think what you're, tell me if this matches for you. I'm less excited about Kubiak than I was about Grubb. but I'm more excited about Kubiak than I was about Grubb at the end of the year.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
good.
you always want the high ceiling.
Right?
But I actually kind of feel like that's not the worst thing, that we're all kind of there. Like, how many of these like high ceiling offensive coordinators have worked? Like, when was the last time?
I know.
Like when Sean McVay became the OC, no one was like, "Oh, this is going to be great." Like this tight ends coach who's never called plays before. Like,
yeah. It's good to have an adult in the room. So that hopefully that works out. All right. Jeff, this is for you. This is a scenario where the only thing you have to do is the Seahawks have to draft Ashton Jeanty in the first round.
oh God.
Okay. Evan, that's a running back in case you don't know.
Oh no.
What are the sequence of events that comes after that?
In terms of what? Like,
What else did the Seahawks, now that after they've drafted Ashton Jeanty, what do?
they would have to trade Ken Walker away and try to recoup some capital since they just wasted their most important resource. Then they would have to fire John Schneider immediately and send out a press release that Pete Carroll's like taken over the organization from outside the building. But they can't do this. They would have to spend like all of their next picks on offensive linemen, like 3 in a row. But like, look, G&T is one of the only blue chip prospects in this draft. I think the guy is one of the surest players to hit, but it would be such a dumb idea for a team with kind of just, it's like putting the rims on a car that doesn't work yet. Like, it's so stupid.
Yeah.
We've seen, like, you've talked about this for years, like they've put a little too much stock in wide receiver, I think, before they built the baseline of the offense. I think we've seen around the league wide receiver should be the finishing touch of the offense. Like JSN, I love the guy, but like he had a career year and the offense didn't get better. And that's not a knock on JSN. It's just you want to build the foundation of the house, and there's no more luxury position than running back. So there's no way to making that up. If they do that, they're just lost. And you can build a run game with a 7th round pick. We've seen too many times. They need to have the foundation to make it work. So we thought this was a Pete Carroll thing. Let's go with this question.
We have a question from the chat. It's a great question, actually. What does Evan think we should do at kicker this year? Well, Mr. Jeremy, I don't know how to pronounce your last name. Let me tell you what I think we should do. So 2025, Jason Myers has a $6.825 million cap hit, approximately 2.4% of Seattle's 2025 salary cap. Okay. This is the second to last year of his deal. Okay. Seattle needs to open up a little bit of space in 2025. How could Seattle do that?
Rookie kicker.
Extending Jason Myers, lowering his cap hit. They could actually do this, and I think it would be a great deal. So tack on 2 extra 3 years, secure your Pro Bowl kicker for the next 5. Money. Can't think of it.
Well, Evan, you get a back-to-back question here. Amy Holmes has one. He says, when we clearly need to upgrade the offensive line, how comfortable are you that Steve Hutchinson has grown with the league to be able to make a good selection? A good player doesn't necessarily make a good scout. Yeah. He pounded the table for Stone Forsyth, if I recall correctly.
Did he actually?
I don't know if he pounded the table, but I don't know that he's had a particularly great run in highlighting offensive linemen.
That's so common of like former NFL players though, right? Even just current NFL players. Richard Sherman.
Jeff has continually asked KJ Wright to be the next scout for our best safety. I know that.
Jeez. Do you ever guys see John Elway's draft history at quarterback?
Yeah. It's not the same thing.
I say it all the time. A lot of players do not make great scouts. And there's some guys that are great at identifying offensive linemen. Hopefully hopefully Benton has a better track record. I don't know what his track record is of identifying guys. I don't know. He was in San Francisco. They had pretty mid lines. New Orleans, they took a guy in the first round that everyone would have taken. He got more out of Trevor Penning than they did in the past. I don't know. But they don't have this offensive line. I wish they kind of used Mike Holmgren. I know Mike McDonald had been talking to Mike Holmgren, but that dude built the best offensive line this league's maybe ever seen. And maybe they should be scouting him.
Yeah. This is a question for both you guys. Chris Bailey, which draft history would you rather change? Chuck Knox getting his way and the Seahawks take Brett Favre instead of Dan McGuire, or the Seahawks lose to the Patriots in 92 and get the first pick in the draft and take Drew Bledsoe instead of Rick Meyer?
This was before I was born, so I'm not answering this.
Would you rather Drew Bledsoe or Brett Favre have actually been a Seahawk?
I think Brett Favre is a POS, so Drew
Much
Bledsoe.
better quarterback, though.
Don't care.
I'm the opposite. Brett Favre is a horrible person. We've learned that. I throw all morals out the window. I don't care if you're a good person or not. I care if you win football games. Brett Favre was a way better quarterback than Drew Bledsoe. If I'm looking for morals, I'm not looking at the NFL. Like, that's not where I go for morals. Where like Ray Lewis is like the greatest linebacker we've ever seen, and we talk about his history, or Lawrence Taylor and some of the stuff he did.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to moral. I'm gonna take Brett Favre on that one.
Jeff said the quiet part out loud. All right, last question. Yeah. This comes from Sam Brown. Which Seahawk on defense would make a big jump from this past season to next season, would have the biggest impact? So which Seahawks defender, if they took a big jump, would have the biggest impact on the Seahawks?
Still waiting for Boye Mafe to have like a... I don't know, actually, if that's my choice.
No, I don't think there's a point where he can... I think he is kind of what he is, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go Byron Murphy. I think Byron Murphy had a much better rookie year than people gave him. He didn't splash as much as, obviously, like, he's always going to get compared to Jared Verse, and Jared Verse is like the face of the team now, so it's frustrating. But they asked him to do stuff that was kind of like not what we would have drafted a first-round player for. He was at one tech. He was taking on double teams. He wasn't really asked to pass rush. If you're taking a guy 16, you're asking him to be like a disruptor. I think if they let him play that role a lot more, I think we've seen a lot of guys like Quinnen Williams and Dexter Lawrence and all these guys jump in year 2 and 3. Justin Matabuke jumped in year 3. I think if you could compare with Leonard Williams with what Byron Murphy we think he can be, that becomes the face of your team.
I think if Tyrese Knight could take another step forward, that could be a pretty interesting linebacker group you got, especially in a Mike McDonald system, which emphasizes the position. It would be a big deal.
I mean, you could pick almost any of them, folks. Like, if Reek Woolen took a big step forward, it'd be a big deal. If Devin Witherspoon took a big step forward and had more impact plays, big deal. My money, I think Derek Hall. I think I'd go Derek Hall. I feel like he's got the potential to have a higher upside than Boye Mafe because his main rush tool is power. And I think that can show up every single week, like we saw with Jared Verse. So I think Derek Hall, like in his fullest form, could be a 12, 13, 14 sack guy. That would be a huge difference because right now, guys, I feel a little bit concerned that they've topped out too low on the edge rush. And I feel like that's something that I would like to see. So that's a good one. Those were our Patreon questions. Thanks to everybody who took the time to submit them. And thanks for everyone who's over at patreon.com/hawkblogger. Couple quick things on Super Chat, and then we'll let everyone get out of here. Andrew McCrae, who's been a member for 3 months. Thank you, Andrew, says, if we get Joe Milton, good job, Andrew. Do you start him and trade Geno? Well, guys, I keep hearing this trade Geno thing. Nobody's trading for Geno. Like zero people are trading. Wait,
there's
Jeff,
one.
I don't think the Raiders are trading for Geno.
I think they could.
I think there's no chance. Go ahead. I think there is zero chance. You go ahead and
I
make
think
the case.
there's one team. I think Pete Carroll is the only one who could go in there and sell on Geno. I think they've had that story. I don't think they're going to be good next year. I think they can use him. I think Sam Darnold's probably a far more likely scenario. I think they're the only one. I think, Brian, you've made this point so many times that like it's so hard for a GM to go out in a press conference and go, we're going with Geno Smith to change our franchise. And the teams who need quarterbacks, the Giants and the Jets, like they've had, they're like, how do you sell that? I think Pete could do it. Is it likely? No. I think they'll end up with probably Darnold. I don't know where Darnold's market even goes, but say the Rams get rid of Stafford and Darnold goes there, and the Seahawks do ultimately move off. I think the Raiders, I think Brady tweeted this too. They're the one team that could.
We got a super chat from Jonathan King. Last one here says, Olu is a great communicator that coaches rave about. It's true. Even when he was not starting, that was never the doubt with Olu. Was everyone says up and down, he knows his stuff and communicates really well, all that kind of thing. The question with Olu has always been physical. Like, does he have the physical tools to be better than just okay? And I think that's still the question. All right. Anything else, guys? Anything on your mind? Evan, we haven't talked to you for a while, so I want to make sure we get any of those sick thoughts purged from your head.
Don't trade for Myles Garrett.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You're right. I did want to ask you about that. Say more.
No splashy trades, please. Like, let's continue to build the way we're building. Like, invest carefully, methodically. Like, I don't think we should throw money at that type of guy right now. I don't feel like we're one piece away. That's the thing. Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, are you guys in the same camp?
Like in theory, you're 100% right. My issue is this draft sucks. Brian brought up the edge rush issue. You can get the best dude in the league and get out of a bad draft. I think everyone keeps coming back to the trades they've made in the past. I hated all those trades at the time because they were all gadget players. This is just a blue chip edge rusher in Mike McDonald's defense. I think it would be great, but Evan, like, big picture is right. Like, I don't think they're one player away. I don't think they should be taking shortcuts. I think they need to build a team. But man, like, if that trade's on the table and you can get Myles Garrett,
what are you giving up? What are you giving up to get him, Jeff?
I'd give up 2 firsts and like Boye.
Oh, hell no. Would you do that, Brian?
I would do that.
Would I do that?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I would do that in half a second.
Not because, by the way, I think he's worth that. So that's not the issue for me. I think that's a reasonable offer. I don't think that's actually going to even be enough necessarily to get him. But you're also talking about paying him.
And you're talking about him,
I think he's probably going to want a renegotiated deal. I mean, he does have another year left on his contract, but generally, if you're going to give up this much for somebody, you're also going to want to sign them to a longer deal. He's 30 years old, like, are going to be. I just don't think the windows really match up to where
that's where I mostly agree with you. Like, I don't think they need to do it. I would kill them if they did. I'm nervous the Rams or the Niners are going to do it.
Niners are a decent bet, and I saw a really good point about the Niners. Knowing that Myles Garrett wants to go someplace that has a chance to win a Super Bowl, what's the highest draft pick associated with the team that has a realistic case to be made that they could be Super Bowl contenders next year?
Yeah.
The Niners at number 11. I don't think any of the top 10 teams can make the case. So you could argue that the highest pick that the Browns could get for Myles Garrett would come from San Francisco.
Please no.
Yeah, I mean,
if we have to block Garrett and Bosa,
it would suck on that. That certainly would suck. They kind of need that pick. Their offensive line is in trouble. Now their defensive line is too, and it wouldn't be as much in trouble after that trade. But I don't know that gets them over the hump. But I think that's a legitimate possibility.
It just feels like every time this guy comes available, they end up in the NFC West. Can we like have one go somewhere else?
I'd love him to stay in the AFC. That would be nice.
Yeah.
But you have to think that the Browns, like, if they're going to trade him, are probably going to want him to go to the NFC.
Maybe Washington.
Yeah. I don't know.
Like, the Browns might just be assholes about this.
I'm kind of middle of the road here, but I kind of agree with Evan in general on this. Until you feel like your team is like that, you see a clear path to where they're just really on the march and you can add like a supercharger. I just don't think that's who the Seahawks are yet. I don't think we've seen that kind of, they have not earned that kind of deal yet.
I just, like, Cool. You've got Myles Garrett rushing the passer, and you've got Sam Howell throwing 5 interceptions a game. Great. Sorry. Don't really care. Not interesting.
I don't know. You want to be the best at something. I think Garrett could make this the best defense in the NFL for a couple of years.
That's the part I agree with.
And I think that gives you a much clearer path than trying to become where you're not great at anything right now.
All right, give me your prediction for the game before I let you guys go. Who's going to win?
It's going to be so annoying, but the Chiefs are going to do it again.
I think I got the Chiefs too.
Yeah. You can't bet against them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like all year, I'm like, this team sucks. They're not going to win. And they just win every game. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's so exhausting. Like, I don't even hate the Chiefs like other people do. It's just kind of tiring. Like, I want something new.
As far as like dynasties go, the Chiefs just don't bug me that much. They're still in the earlier part of this. If we're like the Patriots, where 15 years later they're still winning all the Super Bowls, then I'll probably feel a little different. But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't hate the Chiefs either. Like Travis Kelce annoys me a little bit, but like he's a pretty cool guy overall. I just like still feel bummed that like if this was Bills Eagles, like I would have so much like energy and like emotion for this game.
Yeah.
And like I'm still kind of reeling from that.
If it was Lions Chiefs,
that's what I mean. If it's Lions Chiefs or Bills Eagles or something like that, like I'd have so much fire for this game and like want to see one of those two teams win. And it just feels like that was sucked away. And I'm still not quite there.
One more thing. The Jalen Carter thing is going to keep coming up. You even brought up a little bit here, Jeff. People like nailing the Seahawks for not taking Carter. I still just don't have that. I don't have that. Like all of us were on. Like, well, I don't know if Jeff was on or not. For
we were all very on.
We all wanted them to draft Carter.
Yeah,
we did. We have our live reaction. That's not revisionist. So I already wanted them to do something else. But it wasn't just the Seahawks. There was like a lot of other teams that had the chance to take him. They all evaluated. This guy wasn't just having off-field stuff. He couldn't even finish his conditioning drills. There's all sorts of red flags. And they're like, we're not going to take the only top 5 pick we've had in like 20 years and spend it on a guy. Like, it didn't work out in the sense that, maybe you would have been better off with Jalen Carter. But Devin Witherspoon's a great player, and it's not like the Sam Bowie, Michael Jordan kind of situation where you end up with a total piece of crap. You've ended up with a Pro Bowl, likely future All-Pro kind of player. You just didn't end up with the best possible guy that you could. It's like, I don't have that energy, but like there's a lot of folks who are like, man, they're so stupid. I just don't feel that way. I see the D. Eskridge thing. I'll have that conversation, but that one, I don't have that.
No, I agree. Like obviously, like we identified Carter as the unique defensive tackle where you will have to be willing to look past it. And look, I would have rather them had Jalen Carter than Devin Witherspoon. Nothing against Devin Witherspoon, but you look at some of the teams after them. The Cardinals took Paris Johnson, who's a good player, but the Raiders took Tyree Wilson.
Yeah,
like if you're the Raiders, that's the team you're banging your head against. Like a history of taking guys like that. You took Tyree Wilson as like your 5th string edge rusher. That's the team that should be beating themselves up. The Seahawks ended up with a 2 years in the league, 2-time Pro Bowler, borderline All-Pro. Like they did fine. He's an amazing player. He's a great, fun player. If you're the Raiders or Atlanta who took Bijan, a running back, like, the Bears handed that pick up.
Evan, how did you feel about the Pete Carroll hire? How'd you feel watching any of that press conference? I haven't heard from you about that. I just wanted to hear your thoughts there before we wrap up.
I mean, I'm stoked for him. I'll be rooting for the Raiders. I think he's in a great spot to reset them culturally. But like, I'm kind of indifferent about it. Like, I'm rooting for him. I'll be watching Raiders games. I'll tell you that. I'm going to be watching Raiders games, and it'll be interesting to see if he poaches or how much he poaches from Seattle's regime as it exists today, as he built out his staff, and some of the player personnel decision making should be interesting. But I mean, I'm mostly indifferent about it. Like I think Seattle made the right decision moving on from him when they did, and I'm stoked for him. I hope it goes well. but like no crazy take on this.
Yeah. I think the best thing you said there is I'll be watching Raiders games. I think I will be too. I haven't like intentionally watched a Raiders game in
exactly
a decade at least, like
Probably
maybe more.
Probably more. My brother's a Raiders fan. They've had one winning year in 20 years.
Now I'm going to be tuning into those Chargers Raiders games.
Oh yeah, right.
And that's fun. I like that. That's fun.
Yeah,
it's kind of fun to have like a second team, and like I bet you Lockett ends up going there, and
also those two like hating each other. It's so fun.
I know it is fun.
Renewed. So.
All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks to everybody else for showing up for the show. Make sure you give Evan Hill a follow at Evan Hill HB and Jeff Simmons at Real Jeff Simmons. I'm Brian Nemhauser. I will catch you all tomorrow morning. Until then, have a great rest of your night.
Hey, folks, this is Brian Nemhauser. Thanks for listening to the show. Hope you enjoyed it. Want you to know that Real Hawk Talk is available on all major podcast platforms. Go ahead and subscribe. Have all podcasts delivered directly to your phone after each and every show. And then go ahead and leave us a 5-star review. It helps us out, gets more people to the show. Then, if you haven't already done it, go to patreon.com/hawkblogger and subscribe for just $5 a month. Gets you immediate access to our Slack channel. Join hundreds of folks in that community to talk Seahawks about wins, losses, and all things in between. Not to mention, become eligible to win giveaways for Seahawks tickets and get to ask questions of the Real Hawk Talk crew every week on the show. Finally, if you haven't gone to hawkblogger.com recently, head on over. Tail of the Tape morning after articles are there every week. Hoping to see you there. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for supporting the show. Go Hawks.